Hello ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to another episode of The Studio. Today we're talking about auditions, and obviously, we seem to have someone here who's interrupting the show. Let's get back to it. So we're talking about auditions. What we're gonna do is, hello? Is this your studio or is this my studio?
I'm completely lost. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another episode of The Studio. My name is Adam, and this is, of course, the legendary, the one and only Rob Knopper.
Wow, thank you very much for that American accented introduction. You know, I can sort of tell the difference when you're doing a Rob versus when you're doing an Adam. How long did it take you to develop the Adam accent?
Many years of practice. But I think the Rob Knopper accent is one of the hardest to recreate. I just can't get that overtone of Audition Hacker Studios.
You got to get the nasal sound.
Now I remember I sent Rob a studio hoodie as well, so he's gonna put it on right now. Look at that! Oh, the studio family represented two ways. It looks better on you than it looks on me. Anyway, today's episode is going to be one that you guys have requested a long time, an interview with the man himself, Rob Knopper. He is, of course, a percussionist in the Metropolitan Opera Orchestra of New York City, and he's also the host and producer of Audition Hacker and Percussion Hacker, two of my favorite series on YouTube. So thank you so much for joining me, Rob, on the studio show, and thank you so much for letting me into the Audition Hacker studio.
Well, I was going to say thanks for having me, but this is actually my apartment. But I appreciate it, and happy to talk about auditions with the studio family.
The studio
That's
family.
What they're called.
The studio family.
Hi guys.
When did you decide you wanted to play in an orchestra?
I was at Interlochen in high school. That is a camp in northern Michigan. If this is Michigan, you know, the state, this is where I grew up, down here. And then Interlochen is all the way up here near Traverse City. I was playing marimba, and I was playing in orchestra, and we were doing chamber music, and I was playing Gainsborough by Tom Geiger, and I was thinking about how I was gonna integrate music into my future, because I said, I definitely want to do music. It may have been the teacher there, it may have been, you know, one of the other students who told me about the fact that you can be in an orchestra, and in the US we have a union, and the union provides protections where you can actually have a life and a career and a family and a consistent salary. And I said, wait a minute, music plus a stable lifestyle where I don't have to worry about where my next paycheck is coming from, hoping that the random bar in Oklahoma that I played at 3 weeks ago is gonna pay me. Sign me up. And then just to add a little cherry on top, they said, well, also to get into an orchestra, you have to go through this audition process, which is relatively fair and just based on if you can practice better than the other people who have come to that audition. So I said, yes, definitely, this is the sort of project that I am up for. I want to obsess about auditions and just figure it out, and eventually one day maybe I'll win one.
Now, of course, Rob Knopper produces the show Audition Hacker, which is a show about auditions for all musicians, not just percussionists. How many auditions have you failed?
I have failed 40, and that's about out of 56 that I've taken in my life.
A lot of people ask me all the time, what do I do to get past an audition? And they always think that you have to pass the first time every time. But the truth is, nobody is perfect. Can you tell me what you did to get over all those times that you failed? Did you have any sort of method? Did you want to improve on certain things? Did you reflect on what you did? What did you do to eventually point yourself in the successful direction?
There was no one moment when I said, I've been doing it all wrong. This is the way that's gonna cause me to win. And maybe I did have that thought, but it was never correct. Every time I would lose an audition, I would feel terrible and think about all the things that went wrong, and I would let myself kind of go through this desperate, you know, few days of sadness and disappointment, and then I would come to a moment where I would say, okay, I can either choose to continue being sad about this, or I can choose to make some kind of major tweak in my audition process. So every time I made a tweak, it was like an experiment. It was like saying, I don't know what's gonna win an audition, but I know what's not gonna win an audition, and it's whatever I just did. So what is something new? And it doesn't even matter what it is. It could be some new method of learning notes, like if your teacher tells you to practice slowly, but you never have, maybe it's that. If your teacher always tells you to practice slowly and you usually do, maybe it's practice at tempo. Maybe that works for you. Maybe it's to do more mock auditions. Maybe it's to do more realistic mock auditions. And eventually you build your own audition process that's based on your own weaknesses that you hear in the audition from, you know, your mock auditions or your teacher, or by recording the audition. Does that make sense?
And you failed quite a lot of auditions, but you kept repeating through this process of evaluating yourself, finding out what the problem was. How many years did it take you before you got to the MET?
It took about 10 years of auditions. And so the first one I took was in high school for the Ann Arbor Symphony. I remember applying for that that, and then the very fine people of the Ann Arbor Symphony percussion section basically sent me a note that said, hey, we know you're 16 and we're just gonna let you come anyway, but like you should know that like you're probably not gonna win. I was like, okay, cool, thanks, like this will be a good experience. And then all the way through college auditions and summer festival auditions every year, and just throwing my resume at whatever orchestra was having an audition, and usually they'd reject my resume, and then every once in a while I would go like to Kansas City or to Annapolis, Maryland, or some random town like Huntsville, Alabama I went to. Finally, when I was 24, I won the job in the Met.
So all of you guys who have been thinking of getting into auditions and you're scared that you might fail the first time, remember, you don't have to get it the first time. Sometimes it might take up to 10 years before you actually get anywhere near your dream job. And now Rob has one of the best jobs in the industry, so he's a shining example of this methodology. Now Rob, you use this methodology in your series Audition Hacker.
Yeah.
What motivated you to start this series? Like, what motivated you to want to teach other people how to succeed like you?
I think as I was going through that process, that decade of auditions, I realized that when you go to your lessons are busy. You're talking about playing all the instruments, you're talking about musical things, you know, how tightly should you be holding on to your sticks for doubles, and for some reason I just never went through a straightforward process of audition prep with my teachers. We just never talked about it for some reason. When I was growing up and thinking about how to take auditions, I realized that there was nothing really out there for people who wanted to just like see what the process was for someone else. I wanted to watch a professional practice from the day they got the audition list to the day of the audition. Once I got the job, I was finally in a position where I could say like, oh, I guess my process was at least successful for one person. At least I should put that one version of it out there, and then maybe that'll inspire more people around the world to put their versions out there. And so since then, I've kind of tried to interview different people who have won jobs. I've interviewed people about how to do specific parts of the audition process, like how to learn difficult runs on a mallet instrument, and I just wanted there to be more resources for people who wanted to obsess about auditions like I did.
And now on my show, The Studio, we talk a lot about gear, we talk about mallets, we talk about all this kind of stuff, and I review a lot of things from really cheap mallets to really expensive marimbas. I review the whole spectrum of gear. Now Rob, as someone in the Met, you have access to an unrivaled selection of gear, both in Lincoln Center and also in the Audition Hacker studios. Behind this camera, there is a whole bunch of gear that I wish I could own myself. But on my channel, I'm always saying things like you don't need to buy the most expensive gear. And Rob, what is your opinion on buying gear? Should people always aim for the most expensive gear, best instruments, best tambourine, best snare drum, or should they aim for something they can afford, something that is usable, something that can get them to where they want to be?
Well, first of all, let's just all take a second and be thankful that we don't play the violin, the viola, the cello, the bass, the flute, the oboe, the bassoon, the clarinet. Everything costs more than what we buy. Everything.
Exactly.
Understand that if you want to be a serious musician, then you should just give in to the fact that you should spend money on instruments and mallets and stuff like that to sound better. Having said that, you don't need to go crazy and buy everything. You don't need to go to the keyboard mallets section of Steve Weiss and buy every single thing that's on there. Buy new mallets every once in a while based on what you need. When you need something, you should just do as much research as you possibly can. Maybe you're in a school or a high school, or you play in a youth orchestra. If you're in the market for some kind of new tambourine or something, try everything that everyone else has. Just be shameless. Just go rummage through their bag, ask them first. And at the end of it, you can say, okay, those 4 mallets are pretty good for a bunch of excerpts, then they're probably going to be good for a lot of other things. So you don't have to buy all 35 mallets just to have everything in the world, but you just buy what's good.
Okay. Can you tell me, Rob, what is it like to work in an orchestra full-time? Like, what kind of demands are there? Is it very demanding? Do you have to go to the Lincoln Center every day and brush your teeth there?
Coming from college, I think playing in the Met is less intense than that. Your only focus, you know, as a student in high school, college, and afterwards is to use all of your free time to practice to win a job. So now that I don't have to do that in my free time, I actually feel like I have more time. It's a little less busy. I think I probably do like between 7 or 8 services on average. Each service is like around 3 or 3.5 hours as an opera musician. So I would say on average, like I have 5 or 6 days a week where I have stuff to do. And on those days, I either have a morning and an evening or an evening service. And I almost always have the middle of the day free, which is nice.
Oh, so it's not too bad then. You got some space in between to breathe, make some coffee.
Coffee! Because I just discovered coffee makes me practice more!
And finally, we both went to Pasic this year, Pasic 2017. It was absolutely lit. We both did a panel together with our friends Casey Cangelosi, Drew Tucker, Todd Meehan, and of course us two. We were in this very, very small room that we got very last minute, but it was getting very hot in there. Yeah. And somehow we managed to pull over 100 people in that room. Thank you so much to everyone who came to our meetup. Rob, what were your highlights of Pasic 2017? I know my personal highlight was, of course, meeting you in person for the very first time, but what were your highlights? I know you had a lot of things to do over there.
Well, that's right. We met for the very first time after working together for quite a while.
Yeah.
I felt like I was getting to know you, and then there you were in person, in the flesh. I spend a lot of time teaching. I spend a lot of time right here in this room thinking of how I can construct a topic so that it can be useful to you guys who are watching these videos. And my student is this black box right here that's right in front of me, this little camera with the glass and the little mic thingy coming out the top. This is my student, and I don't really actually get to interact with anybody. I don't get to see you. I just talk at you. And then there you were at Pasic, all of you guys who came up to me and said hello. This particular thing helped me to work out my left-hand buzz roll. All of that stuff was hugely life-changing for me. I loved meeting you guys. The meetup was something else I just want to mention because I don't think ever before at Pasic there's been a meetup of people who have online platforms that they use to teach and perform for people around the world. We all got together to talk about our experiences and to hear from you guys who were in the audience and to take questions, and I think that was a really special thing to be a part of. I feel like that is the future, creating a path in a way, and I hope we can use what we're doing here, making videos and performing, and help you guys think of things that you want to make videos about and how you want to either perform, teach, or learn online in the future.
So if you were not at the panel, or if you just want to relive the panel that we did at Pasic, which I am really thankful for, again, we had 5 different people from 5 different areas of percussion all together on the same panel. I thought it was one of the best things that we could have ever done together. But if you want to see that entire panel unedited on my channel, you can check it out over here because I recorded the whole thing, and I think it's got some really useful bits of information from all of the guys on the panel. And of course, because I'm in the Audition Hacker studios for just this one day in New York City, we are doing a video together on Rob's channel, which is going to be more about YouTube content creation. So this one was meant to be more about auditions and Rob's life because I know you guys love the Rob Knopper memes. It's lit. It's really an honor to be standing here on the special carpet.
The pleasure is all mine, I insist.
Standing in front of this wall is one of the greatest achievements of my life. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and please follow our Instagrams and all our social medias below because both of us are posting a lot more content on all of our platforms. If you want to see more behind the scenes footage and all that kind of stuff, you can see it on the vlog channel and all of that. All that's in the description below. And please hit that red subscribe button below to keep up with my uploads because I still upload every week, and because of Pasic, the uploads have been a bit behind, but there's a lot of amazing content coming up for you guys. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and we will see you next week for another episode of The Studio. Good night!